Hello, thank you for watching our presentation on Kirin beer. Below are the team members that attended the UTD Japan trip: Anna, Megan, Michael, Miriam, and Saran. Our group recently had a chance to visit Kirin's Yokohama Beer Village. The visit consisted of a tour of the facilities, followed by an opportunity to sample different products. The tour mainly covered the production process, but they also briefly went over some of the key points of the company's business operations. First of all, Kirin, the word comes from a mystical creature that is half horse and half dragon. This is shown to your right. This creature indicates good fortune to those that are able to see it. Kirin also likes to pride itself and be called Kirin Ichiban. This means the number one. So therefore they feel like they are the number one beer in Japan. In 1983, the company revamped its corporate image by releasing a new company philosophy and corporate slogan. And then in 1987, Kirin established strategic business units along business lines. In the 1980s, Kirin created Kirin Light Beer, Kirin Ken Nama Draft Beer in cans, and Kirin Bin Nama Draft Beer in bottles. Kirin suffered a declining market share due to the popularity of competitor Asahi Brewery's Asahi Super Dry. Kirin responded by changing its flagship beer name to Kirin Lager Beer. This expanded beer selections and then introduced Kirin Ichiban Shibori. Kirin Ichiban Shibori became one of the most successful beer products Kirin ever had. Kirin's soft drink division merged to become Kirin Beverage Company Limited, and after establishing with Kirin Tropicana Inc., had the domination share of the chilled orange juice market in the U.S. In the late 1990s, the company introduced their medium-term business plan, New Kirin Vision 2.0. This entered the low malt beer market and closed 4 plants actually. The following slides are on the history of Kirin. Kirin Brewery Company was founded in February 23, 1907. This was preceded by Spring Valley Brewery, established in 1884 by William Copeland. This was later reopened as Japan Brewery Company. They then decided to merge with Sapporo Beer and Osaka Breweries to become Dai Nippon Beer in 1906. Copeland closed the brewery, and in 1885, a group of Japanese and forest businessmen reopened Copeland's brewery as Japan Brewery Company Limited. One of those Japanese businessmen involved in the purchase was the president of Mitsubishi, which marked the beginning of Kirin's affiliation with the Mitsubishi Company. Japan Brewery, which was foreign-owned and established as an independent Japanese entity with the financial backing of the Iwasaki family, the founding family of Mitsubishi, Kirin gave Midiya exclusive rights to market Kirin beers in Japan, as well as the rights to export them. Following the earthquake, beer was in short supply, which led to a decrease in demand in 1925. This led to an oversupply of beer. Kirin Brewery's solution to cope with the excessive beer production was to terminate its exclusive distributor agreement with the Midiya in 1927. The Kanzaki plant was built in April of 1918, and then a malt house was opened in the Yokohama Yamate plant in May of 1918. Also in 1928, the company joined forces with Dai Nippon Beer and Nippon Beer Kosen into a government-sanctioned agreement just to fix prices and the production. In 2007, Kirin celebrated its 100th anniversary. and changed its trade name to Kirin Holdings Company Limited to the company made the Kirin Brewing Company Limited. Kirin Pharma Company Limited subsidiaries of the parent Pure Holding Company Kirin Holdings. Hardships. In 1923, the Great Kanto earthquake destroyed Yokohama Yamate plant. The company had to decide and build a new plant on a different site. This became the Yokohama bottle plant and it opened in 1929, 6 years after the Great Kanto earthquake. Kirin struggled in the 1940s, prompting them to produce soy sauce and warehousing operations that differed from their previous experiences. Despite the war effects, Kirin created the science laboratory at the Yokohama Brewery and the research department at the Amagasaki Brewery. Their successes. Some successes that Kirin has done is to be the #1 brewery in Japan in 1954 and to this day is still a top competitor. In 1972, Kirin had 12 operating plants and controlled 60% of Japanese beer market. In 2007, Kirin knew that it needed to expand, so it changed its name to Kirin Holdings Company and expanded into the food and beverage market. This was also done through purchases of breweries around the world. In 1949, the government controls were lifted and Kirin resumed normal operations, including Kirin branding and normal distribution. Kirin Brewery benefited from the boom that was triggered by the Korean War. It upgraded production equipment in all of its beer plants and doubled production capacity. Kirin Brewery processes. Beer is produced using German raw materials. This is why the price of beer is a little bit higher in Japan than normal countries, because they have to import all their products from countries like Germany and Czech Republic. Kirin uses the term first press to differentiate itself because they only use the first press of the mixture. Most other breweries sacrifice taste by using a mix of presses to reduce ingredient costs. This first press contains more concentrated form of the ingredients, so only using the first press means more flavor. This is shown in the picture to the right. It is obvious that Kirin has more flavor and more concentrated form of the ingredients compared to the normal beer. The main floor of the brewery holds 7 massive tanks used in different stages of production. The first tank contains a mixture of water and barley that is boiled and pressed. This resulting liquid is called the wort. Shown below are barley grains and hops. These barley grains are submerged into a water to germinate and later processed into malt. While at the brewery, we are able to touch both, feel both, and smell both to see how the beer was produced. There are 4 steps to the brewing process. 1 is mashing, 2 fermentation, 3 storage, 4 filtration. The tour guide instructed us on some of the processes in this visual. Milling is when the malt is crushed and boiled to become malt mash, and then it is extracted. The mash is filtered and the first extract of malt is used, going back to the first press. Boiling, hops are added and boiled into the mash to generate the beer's unique aroma and bitterness. During fermentation, yeast is added to the wort. The wort is stored and filtered in at tanks for 1 to 2 months for maturation. In the 1980s, Kirin also created Kirin Light Beer with only 95 calories. Kirin Can Nama draft beer became into cans, and Kirin Bin Nama draft beer into bottles. Competition. Kirin currently holds 33.1% of the beer market share in Japan. This is shown in the dark gold color. Suntory has a market share of 15.5%, and Asahi, the major competitor, has a 38.1% of market share. Asahi also has brands like Super Dry and Clear Asahi, which is obviously the most enjoyable beer to Japanese people. This is shown in the market share pie graph on your right. Kirin also expanded globally by acquiring a New Zealand-based beer company in the early 2000s. Kirin Investment Company, Limited, was established in Shanghai and responsible for the operations in China. Kirin then introduced the Kirin Group Vision 21, which caused Kirin to act as the group's operating holding company. Kirin in China has a stronger role in the beer market. Kirin is also tapping on the growing beer market in Southeast Asia by acquiring stakes in San Miguel Brewery Inc. in the Philippines. Kirin continues to apply its technology to areas in plant genetics, pharmaceuticals, and bioengineering, even though brewery still remains Kirin's core objective. Sales. Kirin suffered public scrutiny because of its large control of the beer market and refocused its strategy on delivering high-quality products instead of quantity, advertising, and expansion. Kirin Brewery avoided being split up because of the Anti-Monopoly Act. In 1976, Kirin launched Mein Bra beer. Kirin then entered the food production and co-established the Kauai Dairy Products Company, Limited. In 1981, Kirin began implementing its long-range management plan and began focusing on other areas like life sciences and pharmaceuticals. Kirin has operations in multiple countries worldwide, including China, Australia, and the US. These agreements work both ways, allowing Kirin to act as a distributor for foreign brands inside Japan. A decrease in sales can be factored by aging and declining of Japanese population. Kirin is focused on establishing itself internationally because of this. They accomplish this through a series of agreements and contracts with other breweries and distributors to become a name around the world. Experience. Here are some pictures from the brewery with Dr. Lee and other students that came on the trip with us. It was a very enjoyable experience, and of course they let us have samples. This is a picture of us getting to taste the difference between first press and the second press. The first press definitely had more flavor and is obvious why Kirin stands out. Here is part of the group being shown taking samples from the Kirin Beer Village. They were very accommodating and we got to try 3 different beers while also having snacks as well. Thank you for listening to our presentation on Kirin Beer. Hopefully, if you're ever in Japan again, or for your first time, you'll be able to stop at Kirin Yokohama Beer Village. Then you can try some samples for yourself and taste Kirin Ichiban. Thank you again for listening to our presentation. Arigato gozaimasu.